Hi ladies, today for CGI we're going to be focusing on the question that's in front of you. Our question says, the city park is 9 2/5 miles from BCCSG. The library is 3 3/10 miles from BCCSG. How much farther is the park from the school than the library? So the city park is 9 2/5 miles from Brighter Choice, or BCCSG. The library is 3 3/10 miles from BCCSG. And we want to know how much farther is the park from the school than the library. All right, so looking at the word problem, I want you to really kind of think as I was reading, what are some of those quantities? And what do they represent, as well as what is our unit, what is the question that we're trying to answer, and then we'll mark it up together. So the city park, so this is super important. The park is 9 2/5 miles from the school, and then the library, change my color. The library is 3 3/10 miles from the school. And then we want to know our question, which is how much farther, so how much farther is the park from the school than the library is from the school? All right, so that question, how much farther, I really want you to think about that clue word. How much farther is the park from the school than the library? When you're solving this question, in that planning section, it would be really beneficial if you try to draw some sort of small visual. And your visual doesn't necessarily have to be like a bar graph of any sort or anything like that. It doesn't need to be like a part whole. I really want you to think kind of visually, if you were looking at this problem like on a map, what would that look like? And I think that's really going to be helpful to help you figure out how much farther the park is from the school than the library is from the school. So go ahead and solve this problem. Remember, you're using your plan, solve, check method. In your planning section, you want to make sure that you're writing down what those quantities are and what they represent. Be super specific. And then as well as a number sentence with your variable. In your solve section, make sure that you're working through each part. And as you finish one of the parts, if it's a multi-step problem, you're going to your checking section and you're checking it before you move on. So at this point, I want you to go ahead and pause the video, think about this problem, work through that plan, solve, check section, and then remembering in your answer, you want to make sure that you have your unit listed, and then down in the section where you're going to be writing out what the number sentence is from start to finish that matches our word problem. You want to make sure that you replace your variable with your answer. So go ahead and solve this problem and then unpause and we will work it together. All right, so you should have already solved this problem. And now we're gonna go through and we're gonna be looking at it together. I'm gonna reread it one more time and then we'll go back through, we'll talk about our quantities, and we'll create a visual together to help solve. So the city park is 9 2/5 miles from BCCSG. The library is 3 3/10 miles from BCCSG. How much farther is the park from the school than the library? So we want to know how much farther the park is from the school than the library is from the school. So looking at our quantities up here, 9 2/5 represents the total miles from the school to the park, and then 3 3/10 represents the total miles from school to the library. So already looking at this, we know that the park is much further from the school than the library is from the school. So I create kind of a little visual, kind of like a map. And it'll help us kind of understand what it is that we need to do to figure out how much farther something is than something else. So the first thing we want to represent is the school, because the school is kind of our starting point. So here is Brighter Choice. So we're starting here, and then our total miles from our school to our park, so we'll put our park over here. From here to here is going to be 9 2/5 total miles. So this is 9 2/5 miles. All right, and then from the school to the library, it's going to be 3 3/10 miles. So we'll put the library about here. This is going to be our library. Right? And then from Brighter Choice to the library, it's going to be a total of 3 3/10 miles. You'll notice that they start at the same spot, but they're ending at different locations. So we're trying to figure out what that difference is between where the library ends and the park is. So we want to know kind of from here to here how many miles that is. So in order to find the difference of something, we have to think, do we want our answer to get bigger or do we want our answer to get smaller? So let's look at those 4 different operations that we can choose from. So we have multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. And we know that the total amount of miles that we're going to be traveling can't go any further than 9 2/5 miles. So we already know that we don't want our answer to get bigger because we're trying to find that difference, trying to figure out from here to here what's going to be. But we already know from here to here is 9 2/5 miles. So we know the difference between here to here and here to here. We want to know this, okay? So in order to figure that out, we don't want our answer to get any bigger because if our answer gets bigger, then we're searching for our whole. We already have our whole. So we're going to get rid of the 2 operations, addition and multiplication, which cause our answer to get bigger. So now we want to think about what our unit is. So we have 9 2/5 miles, and then we also have 3 3/10 miles. So we're working with miles, okay? And we're finding the difference between 2 different things. We're trying to find the difference between these 2 numbers. These are sets of miles. So if we're finding the difference between something, that means that we're going to be subtracting. Okay? So we're going to get rid of division. We're not creating 3 3/10 equal sections out of 9 2/5. We're not trying to divide it up equally. We're just trying to find difference. So we're going to focus on subtraction today. So one thing that's super important when we're working with subtraction and we're working with fractions is you have to have the same denominator. And as of right now, we have a denominator of 5 and we have a denominator of 10. Another thing that's really important when we're working with fractions and subtracting them, we want to make sure that we're focusing on putting that bigger number up top. Just because 3 3/10 has a bigger denominator doesn't mean that we want to use that on our on the top, because that 3 and the whole number is smaller. Okay, we're actually going to be starting with 9 2/5 on top, and we're going to be subtracting away 3 3/10. So we have 9 2/5. We're subtracting 3 3/10. And I like to stack them because it helps us organize our thoughts a little bit better. All right, so we have whole numbers. We want to make sure that we're using those whole numbers and bringing them over. The whole numbers don't change, only our denominator changes. So bring over your 9 and your 3. Now we want to look at our two denominators. We want to see, does the 5, so we always ask ourselves, does the smaller denominator equally go into the larger denominator? So does this 5 equally go into 10? And if it does, then we can use this large denominator as our common denominator. So 5 does equally go in 10, so we can use 10 as our denominator. And if we don't change the denominator in one of the problems, in one of the fractions, then that fraction stays the same. So now our 5 becomes a 10. We ask ourselves, how do we get from 5 to 10? What do we multiply by? 5 times 2 gives me 10. So 2 times 2 would give me 4. And now I'm just subtract like normal. 4 minus 3 gives me 1. My denominator is going to stay the same. Do not subtract your denominator. And then 9 minus 3. So 9, 8, 7, 6. So my answer is 6 and 1/10. And our question was asking us how much farther is the park from the school and the library is from the school. And our library and our total for library and for the park, our unit is in miles. So the difference would be 6 and 1/10 miles. If I want to check my work, I could turn it around. We use subtraction to solve the problem, so we want to use the opposite operation to check our problem. So we would take 6 and 1/10 plus 3 and 3/10 to see if we get 9 and 4/10. 1 plus 3 is 4. 10 is our denominator. We don't add these together. It stays the same. 6 plus 3 is 9. And if these match, then we're correct. So last that we want to do is we want to create a number sentence that matches our word problem. Okay, so from start to finish, using the operation that we did and including the answer as well. So we're going to take 9 and 2/5, or you don't necessarily have to use 9 and 2/5. You could also use 9 and 4/10. It doesn't matter. Either way works. I'm going to use 9 and 2/5. So 9 and 2/5 minus 3 and 3/10. And we add our equal sign and replace our number sentence with our variable with the actual answer of 6 and 1/10. All right. So at this point, if you have gone with me and we checked our work together, I want you to make sure that your work matched what mine did. If you need to rewind and pause and double check it, that's great. But you want to make sure that at the end of each lesson, you have on your paper the correct answer. So if you do not have the correct answer, go back and finish it and make sure that you have checked your work. All right, ladies, thanks so much for joining me today, and I will see you on Monday.